Welcome, MA students, to this explainer. Listen up. Up until now, you've probably spent your academic careers as brilliant consumers of literature and language. But today, we are completely flipping the script. This explainer is your ultimate toolkit for transitioning from being a consumer of existing knowledge to an actual creator of new, groundbreaking research.
Okay, let's dive right into this with a fantastic foundational quote from John W. Creswell. He hits the nail on the head, defining it as a process of steps used to collect and analyze information to increase our understanding of a topic. You know, that instantly removes the intimidation factor, doesn't it? It's not magic. It's simply a logical, step-by-step process we use to build understanding. And speaking of logical steps, here is our game plan for today. We're going to cover 1. Demystifying language research, 2. Language versus literary research, 3. Branches of language research, 4. The research process roadmap, 5. Defining the toolkit, and finally 6. Ethics and future trends. Think of this as your highly structured, stress-free path through the material. All right, let's start at the very beginning with Section 1, Demystifying language research. Before we even get into the heavy methodology, let's just look at the actual root of the word itself. Research comes from the French word rechercher, which quite literally means to search again or to investigate carefully. I absolutely love pointing this out because it reminds us that research isn't just a one-and-done task. It is a continuous, systematic, and highly scientific loop of discovery. Moving right along to Section 2, Language versus Literary Research. Now, for those of you with backgrounds deeply rooted in English Lit, this is the exact moment where it's officially time to shift gears. The contrast between the two fields brilliantly illustrates exactly why we need to shift those gears. It's a massive difference. While literary research is interpretive, highly subjective, and relies heavily on texts and literary criticism to study themes, while language research is scientific, it's purely objective, and it uses hard data and statistics to study communication. It honestly requires you to flex a completely different analytical muscle. And within language research itself, you basically have two core purposes. Basic research focuses on developing underlying theories, like figuring out exactly how children acquire grammar over time. Applied research, on the other hand, focuses on solving immediate, practical problems in the real world, like testing whether using mobile apps actively improves a student's pronunciation. So, keeping that in mind, I want you to start brainstorming. What kind of real-world impact do you want your own MA thesis to have?
That brings us to Section 3, Branches of Language Research. This is where the possibilities just blow wide open.
Just think about the sheer breadth of this field. You can specialize in applied linguistics, sociolinguistics, psycholinguistics, second language acquisition, or English language teaching. Or maybe you decide to dive headfirst into corpus linguistics, computational linguistics, pragmatics, discourse analysis, or phonetics. The variety is truly staggering. It basically means there is an exciting, specialized niche for literally whatever element of language you're most passionate about. Let's look a bit closer at just a couple of these. Take pragmatics, for example. It's the study of meaning and context. Consider the question, can you open the window? Grammatically, sure, it looks like a question about someone's physical ability to lift a pane of glass. But pragmatically, in the context of a hot, stuffy room, it's actually a direct request for action. Pragmatics studies that fascinating, invisible gap between what is strictly said and what is actually meant. Or consider social linguistics from a geographic perspective. The English spoken in Chennai is demonstrably different from the English spoken in London, right? Sociolinguistics zeroes in on exactly this, how society, geographical location, diverse cultures, and even gender directly shape and impact how language varies. Okay, Section 4, the research process roadmap. Now we are going to shift our focus away from the theoretical branches and get into the actual practical mechanics of getting the work done. So the crucial point is that while our source material lists about 10 distinct stages of the research process, we can smoothly condense the whole shebang into this highly manageable 6-step journey. You start by identifying the problem and reviewing the literature, you move on to defining your objectives and hypotheses, you select your design, collect your data, analyze and interpret that data, and finally write the report. If you just stick to this straightforward roadmap, you definitely won't get lost in the weeds. Section 5, Defining the Toolkit. To properly execute that roadmap we just talked about, you really need to master some specific scientific terminology so you can firmly and confidently defend your methodology. First up in your toolkit is the independent variable. By definition,
This is the factor that is manipulated by you, the researcher. Think of it as the cause or the intervention in your experiment. For example, if you decide to introduce online learning into a classroom, that online learning is your independent variable. And that naturally builds right into our next crucial tool, the dependent variable. If the independent variable is the cause, well, the dependent variable is the effect. It's the specific outcome that you are measuring. So connecting back to our previous example, if you introduced online learning, the dependent variable would be the student's resulting speaking performance. You manipulate the independent and you carefully measure the dependent. Simple as that.
Next, you have your hypothesis, which is really just a tentative prediction. Let's say you're looking at technology's effect on vocabulary learning. Your null hypothesis, usually represented as H0, predicts that there will be no significant effect at all. Technology does nothing for vocabulary. But your alternative hypothesis, H1, predicts there will be a significant, measurable effect. Ultimately, your entire research project is essentially just an apparatus designed to test which of these two predictions holds true. And finally, Section 6, Ethics and Future Trends. Let's guide this narrative toward the finish line by discussing the absolute rules of the road and where this amazing field is heading next. First and foremost, academic integrity and research ethics. Guys, this is completely non-negotiable. You must obtain informed consent, firmly respect your participants' rights, use proper citation formats like APA or MLA, and above all else, avoid plagiarism. And remember, plagiarism isn't just directly copying someone's text. It includes self-plagiarism, which is reusing your own old work, mosaic plagiarism, and even accidental plagiarism from poor note-taking. Maintain absolute honesty in your data. Now, what's really interesting about these future trends is how rapidly modern technology is reshaping the very fabric of language research. We aren't just looking at dusty old text in a library anymore. The cutting-edge future trends right now include artificial intelligence and ChatGPT in English language teaching, virtual reality education, mobile-assisted language learning, and digital discourse analysis. The frontier of this field is highly digital, and it is moving incredibly fast. Which brings us to the final and probably most provocative question of this explainer. What gap in knowledge will you fill? You now have the roadmap, you have the scientific terminology in your toolkit, and you've seen the cutting-edge trends shaping the future. The field of English language research is wide open, so I highly encourage you to grab this toolkit, get organized, and start mapping out your own research project today. Thank you so much for joining me, and happy researching.